Hello, folks. You're listening to the Wrecking Crew Comedy Podcast with Vito D'Amico. Mark's not here. His kid, he doesn't even have a kid. We're talking about religion today, and as soon as I said that, he's, whatever. The porn star, he's here. But for religion, whatever. But this is really, really cool. I'm talking to Jason King and Alex Riker, right?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, say hi.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Alex Riker is working on a project. A movie. He's going to be shooting a movie shortly about the Jehovah Witness, right? Jehovah
Yes.
Witness.
Yep. Correct.
And how that affected people, and I just talked to him about what are you going to call it, and it's called Blood. He's thinking that he's going to call it Blood because I guess people that don't know the Jehovah Witnesses, they don't for blood transfusion they don't do that, right?
Correct. It's against their tenets.
Why is that?
I would have to say it's a control issue. It's a high control group, and it's one way of forcing their members to adhere to their rules. It was a lot easier 50, 60, 70 years ago when they introduced it. But now that it's such a staple of modern medicine, it's really become quite harmful for them.
Right. Yeah, I've heard there are horror stories where people have died.
Absolutely. I know people who have died. Unfortunately, the brunt of it goes on women dying in childbirth, and that's the person that I know. She died giving birth to her daughter.
And this is Jason King. You were in how long were you in the Jehovah Witness for?
Well, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and probably, before I was married, so maybe around 22, I began to fade, stopped really attending a lot of meetings, didn't go door knocking as much.
Right.
But it was probably in my early 30s before I was able to mentally snap out of that grip that they have on the way you think, on the way you act,
Right.
and actually examine my beliefs and understand why I believe what I believe.
And you would go door knocking?
Absolutely.
Oh, fuck.
That's a great way to spend a Saturday.
Didn't you... I hate rejection.
I'm a fan of rejection.
Didn't that just... people telling you to fuck off and...
Dogs set on you. Never had a gun pulled on me, but I know people that have.
Really?
Yeah.
As a kid, to deal with shit like that, I mean...
Teenage years are hard enough as it is. Imagine knocking on a door and seeing a friend from school. That was my biggest fear, more than the dogs, was running into somebody I knew from school.
How about some chick you really liked?
Yeah. Oba. Yeah.
Well, we both grew up in small towns, so it was kind of good in the sense that I had the town map completely graphed. I knew where everybody lived.
Right.
I knew when we were 3 doors away, and I knew then that it was time to say I have to go to the bathroom or time for a donut break or whatever it took.
You just stop and go, I got to take a shit.
And we just established that Alex is much smarter than I am.
See, I there was a girl I worked with. Her name was, I'll call her Mick, but her real name was Michelina. And she grew up Jehovah Witness. And I had such a crush on her. She was beautiful, totally beautiful, sweet, lovely girl. But she wouldn't, unless I was Jehovah Witness, she would not, which pissed me right off. And I thought, I talked to a buddy about it, saying, I should just tell her I am. And he's like, no, it doesn't work that way. And then
she would know.
She asked me to go to her church. Or whatever, she goes if you want to come to the meeting or whatever, and I thought, I want to get laid, but not fucked. You know what I mean? So I was just like, that really, really sucked. But she was the knowledge I have now compared to when I was, 19, 20. When people talk about God and the book, and back then as a kid, I just went by what I was taught. You didn't have, the internet or YouTube or, how many kids you knew or, 19, 20 years old going, I'm going to go to the library and check this shit out. You didn't. You just grew up in an area where people would just tell you this is how it is, and how did creation start? And God did it. Okay,
Well, and the strength of the Jehovah's Witnesses is that it's an insular group, so everybody hangs out with just Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what they're encouraged to do. So everybody that you know as a child, you can imagine as a 5-year-old child, everybody you know, your parents, your parents' friends, your parents' kids, they all believe the same things.
Right.
They all believe that man's only 6,000 years old. Why would you even doubt that? That's what I believed for a good chunk of my life. It's embarrassing to say.
Right.
Now I clearly know the difference.
Right. Now you go to a museum going, oh, shit.
That dinosaur was only 6,000 years old. Holy.
New Year's Day, I was in New York City. I went to the Natural History Museum there and saw a cast of Lucy. And it still takes my breath away. It's the first time I've actually seen that in real life. Yeah. She's rough. For her age, she looks great.
Yeah, like you look at it and think, fuck, man. Like that is, how would you hit that? But
with a club, just
they did. But yeah, it's just it's something where, like, do you ever go back? Like, you guys stop going and you're shunned and stuff.
Mostly shunned, yes. I'm not officially kicked out.
And that means shunned means they don't deal with you. They don't.
I'll tell you a story of one of my friends, and he was one of my best friends for a very, very long time. Found out that I was not going. We never really talked about that, so I hadn't been going for quite some time, but we didn't talk about it. He wasn't in my area, so he didn't realize what was happening. He found out, and we were talking. I was moving to London, and he asked me if I was going to find a congregation there. And this was the first time, so I had to make a choice. Am I going to lie to him, or I'm going to keep a friendship, or tell the truth? And he's a friend, so I told the truth. I said, no, I'm not going to find a congregation in London. And it looked like I broke his heart. It looked like I stabbed him. He was that physically pained. And he started crying, and he gave me a hug. And he started
crying?
He started crying. And he says, I can't be your friend anymore. And we have the only contact we've had is when I've initiated it and said, hey, and it's just all, you should come back, you should come back, you should come back.
Right. Oh, fuck, that is awful.
Yeah. But that said, if he shows up at my door tomorrow and says, man, I'm such a fucking asshole, not even close. I've done the same thing to other people. I did the same thing to Alex right here.
What'd you do?
I ignored him for how long?
Oh, dude, I think it was about 10 years ago we reconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was disfellowshipped when I was a teenager. So, I was the first one in our group that was gone. And
when did it hit you, Alex? Like, when did you sit there and say, when did you just, you know what I mean? Like, there are days where you just wake up and you start questioning things. And to me, it was when I was watching, like, Hitchens or an Iron Raw. I would listen and I would just say, they have great points. I mean, they're not, I would hate these people at first, and then I would go, you're the devil. You're just wrong. You're wrong. And then after a while, you're laying in bed going, yeah, but this did make sense, what he was saying. This, the invisible man, like, what the fuck, like,
yeah,
you start thinking, and it's this, for me, it was a painful, just thought, because I always thought, well, I'm going to die and go to heaven and hang out and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize you got one life.
Yep.
Right? And you realize, when you die, you die. Like, it's gone. There's no...
Right.
It's done. You could worry about gas in your car or whatever. Or
that's about the only good thing with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Is dying.
Well, yeah. But there's no heavenly hope for 99.9% of them. So as soon as I was disfellowshipped or excommunicated, then that was my realization that when I die, I die. They don't believe in hell either. So
they don't believe in hell?
No.
What is the difference between Jehovah's Witness and just regular Christians?
Oh, lots. Now, I've been out a lot longer than Jason, so he's probably better at talking the finer points of that than I am, because I've just forgotten after all this time.
Well, the key points would be that They don't believe in a Trinity like mainstream Christianity does.
Like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
They
I
believe,
never understood that either. Like God was Jesus, Jesus was God, and right.
I believe it's like quantum physics that if you actually do understand it or think you do, you really don't understand it.
You know what it is when you do. It's one of those things you understand it when you ever go to a store.
And purchase LSD?
No. You walk out. Just say you go to a Tim Hortons, and you open up the door to leave the Tim Hortons, and you look across the street, and there's a Tim Hortons. There's that feeling that hits you all of a sudden, like
there's a connection.
Yeah,
there.
it's like quantum physics. There's another one directly across the street, and you see yourself walk out the door across the street. That's when you figure everything out. That's when all of a sudden everything makes sense. But I never understood that, and this is something that really got me. And I want you guys to tell me what you guys think. You know when he said Jesus came down, God sent his son, which is him, right? It's supposed to be
in
God.
Mainstream Christianity,
right?
Yeah.
That's what they mean. Jesus was God. He killed himself for us, so we could pray to him. That's what bugged me. Like, I just thought...
Sounds like a lot of narcissism to me.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, not even Zeus would sit there and go, you know what? You know, like that, if you really think about it. And that's what used to keep me up at night going, why didn't he just show up? Like, why do you have to go from a 2,000-year-old book? Why doesn't he just show up and go, listen, I know it's tough. Like, what are we, pets? Like, that's what I just kept thinking.
Neglected pets at that.
Neglected, and some are black, some are white, some are gay, some aren't allowed to be gay. Some are, you worry about, how you're supposed to be with somebody. The tip of your knob's supposed to be off. I mean, there's so many. As a god, I think of myself, if I was a god, I'd do a hell of a lot better job.
I'd be more moral than God.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
a better communicator.
I would really, like they always say, well, it's a mystery. He works in mysterious ways. And I'm thinking, the fucking guy doesn't work. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He hasn't done shit. Are you kidding me? Like when you read about the flood and you read about, and people go, oh, that's old. That's just, that's the old God. I'm like, but...
The Jehovah's Witnesses take that even into today. Like, so you have, they believe that Armageddon, which is the end of the Earth's civilization.
That's what I used to tell Mick all the time. I go, we got to fuck because you even said we got, Thursday it's over.
These perfect logic. But they believe that God is going to come down and kill 99.9% of the population on the Earth. Like the biggest genocide on the planet ever. And this is a good thing.
Is that what it's called, the awakening or something, or what's it called?
The
rapture.
The rapture is another form of Christianity, so it doesn't come into.
What's that thing they say when the end comes, people just die
and then like float into heaven and
but if you're
that's the rapture.
But are you talking about like there was a movie Kirk Cameron did or something where or somebody did that everyone left behind right that one where people that are good die, they're gone, go to heaven, and if you're not, you're screwed. You stay.
That's a different form of religious dementia than I brought into. Yeah.
So Jehovah's believe that 98%,
everyone except for Jehovah's Witnesses essentially will be killed. So everyone on the planet.
And what happens to the Jehovah's?
They live on Earth. They have to clean up the mess, obviously.
Oh, that's gross.
You're telling me, but they don't even think about that. All they think about is hugging pandas and riding lions, because that's the paradise that's been predicted for them by their religious overlords.
And how did Jehovah start? Like when I hear Jehovah Witness, that means Jehovah Witness means they were the witness of God.
Well, and they take that very.
Is that that's what it means?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. They take that very, very literally, and that's why I went and knocked on doors, was because I'm a witness. I'm here to tell you what God has made available to me as far as information goes.
Right.
That was what I believed at the time.
Right.
And I was a firm believer, and I was ardent. I knocked on doors for 90 hours a month at one time. That was what I did for. Not really a living because you don't make any money at it, but that's what I did full time. and it's called pioneering. But I, now you look back at that and go, why the hell? What was I thinking? But
And what did they believe? Like, that's a nice fucking watch, Jason. Jesus,
Thank
he's
you.
got a Camaro. Pulls up in this awesome Camaro, and I should have been a Jehovah. So
There's still time.
What?
let me get you a watchtower.
Yeah, like what is the? Where did? They must have told you where it came from, Jehovah Witness. Like who
No.
started it? Or
Well, they do, but it's completely whitewashed. So they have their own history, and they're very good at doing that. They pick out the parts that are good, they hide the parts that are self-incriminating. So, what they would tell you was this gentleman by the name of Charles Taze Russell had a revelation, basically, and basically dug into Scripture and found out what the actual truth of Scripture is, and that's where the Jehovah's Witnesses came from over time.
Right.
The reality is that it's part. They call it the Great Disappointment of 1844, when the Millerite movement thought Armageddon was coming in 1844, and a lot of the off branches from that. When I don't know if you're aware, but the Earth didn't end in 1844. So a lot of the off branches from that were like the Seventh-day Adventists, the Christadelphians. So these are all the kindred spirits, the brothers or cousins of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
And very similar beliefs, but it's all comes from this basically Millerite movements of the 1840s.
But see, when you say that, that's like all the different types of denominations all have, like the Seventh-day people, the Latter-day Saints, the whatever, they all say, well, our forefather or whoever went in there and they read the Scripture and this is what they came up with and this is the truth. And for me, I always thought, when I hear people like apologists talk, it just bugs me, because I'm thinking, if the book was so perfect, I don't need you.
Yeah.
I don't need you to tell me what's in the book. If it is the Word of God, I should be able to just pick it up myself, being dyslexic and all, and read it, and not have you interpret what it means. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Exactly.
when you get old, when you're a kid, you think, oh, what a that guy's so smart, and that guy's so smart. But as you get older, you realize everybody's a fucking moron. They're
Absolutely.
not as smart as what you thought they were. Okay, so when I hear people talk, or you hear these apologists talk, I'm just thinking, no, you're not as smart as you think you are. And people that follow you are just either sheep or they just don't want to think for themselves. And I'm not saying think for yourselves, be a rebel and don't agree with them. Agree with them if it's right. But if it's something that doesn't make...
critically.
Exactly. Think critically. If it does not make sense, you've got to ask questions. And if you want to believe it, believe it. But if it comes down to... the movie that you're doing, where it's going to cost someone's life, suffering, what is this ridiculous? You don't want a blood transfusion, because who said 2,000 years ago they had no idea of blood transfusions or any of that stuff. They had no idea the technology that we have. We're talking about people that barely wipe their asses, okay? And we can do things these days that are absolutely, could save people's lives. People, I get back then only lived till 20, 30 years old. We got people well into 90 years old, when
Regularly.
Several people passed away. Bowie, a couple weeks ago, passed away, Motorhead. And they were all in their 70s. And what does everybody say? They were so young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were, but, 2,000 years ago, that would be a very freaky thing for somebody to pass 50.
Yeah.
So yeah, when did you think, Alex, that what, screw it, I'm going to do a movie about this? When did you say, I want to do this, and I want people to, I want to tell them the story. Like, what do you want to tell them?
Well, it happened. I was in a conference room filled with a bunch of strangers, and one guy just wouldn't stop talking to me. Long story short, I saw his tag and where he was from, and it was a very small town again, and I asked if he knew some people there, and he goes, yeah, I do. He goes, shame about their son. their son happened to be a real good friend of mine when we were kids. And he had jumped off a bridge. He was disfellowshipped as well. And that was the beginning for me. That it was at that moment I just disconnected from all the conversations that I was dealing with that day, and I thought that we had to make this film. That was 12 years ago. So it's been a long, long time coming. There's been so many reincarnations. It's the screenplay that we have now, the script is absolute polar opposite of what we started with, which was just too dark, too angry, and I still have copies of it. It was terrible. I mean, like in the darkness of it, I can't imagine how anybody could watch it, enjoy it. And then revisions and one writer after the next. We went through 20 writers. Finally, I ran into a guy named Patrick Chilvers, who's a fantastic writer, a great actor, on stage actor. Worked in Stratford, worked on many, many TV shows, and we sat down, and this guy knew exactly what I needed, not what I wanted, because the first thing they said to me, he said, we're going to do the exact opposite of everything that you want. And he says, and call me in 3 months. So I called him in 3 months, and he says, yeah, I'm about halfway done. He said, I've been going to meetings. The guy went completely undercover, started going to meetings, found out absolutely everything that there was to know about Jehovah's Witnesses, and wrote a screenplay that is 10,000 times better than anything that predated it. And yeah, we really had something on the blood issue, which is something that I personally think they're trying to change the rules on it. They're just trying to figure out a way to not have a class action lawsuit, because everybody that allowed a son or daughter or parent or sibling to die because they couldn't have a simple blood transfusion would naturally come up against them, and it would just cost them, with the amount that they've lost in child abuse cases, sex cases in the last 2 years alone. It's a hit that they can't take.
What do you mean the sex cases?
Oh, per capita. Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't have the actual numbers. Jason might know a little bit more.
The one that pops into mind right away, there was this past summer, late summer, there was a royal commission in Australia where they investigated, it's the institutional response to child abuse. So it's not just the Jehovah's Witnesses. They looked at the Catholic Church, right, the Boy Scouts, everybody that is an institution that would have to deal with this type of an issue. What they found with the Jehovah's Witnesses is that there was 1,006 abusers. Guess how many were reported to police out of that?
Out of 1,006?
Out of 1,006.
300.
0. Not one. So they keep this in-house because they don't want to, and this happened in my family. I sat through these meetings where it was said to us point blank, do not go to the media, do not go to the police, because they're just going to use it to make Jehovah look bad.
So what do you mean, like meetings, they would bring these up at the meetings?
No, sorry. So in my family, somebody was assaulted, and I was privy to the meeting because it was held in our house. And as they discussed it, the elders told my family straight out, do not go to the police because they're just it'll reach the papers, and then it'll look bad on Jehovah. It'll look bad on the organization. So they do the same thing throughout the whole of Australia. They were doing the same thing.
So they handle it like the way a hockey team, or keep it in house. Don't for like a football team, like it's us against the world. Yep. We'll take care of it ourselves, but they never really take care of it. It's just kind of like, what if there is like a child abuser guy? What do they do?
So it's not like not like the Catholic Church where they just moved people around.
Right.
They would deal with it internally. The person may be disfellowshipped or reproved or have some other action taken against them in the congregation, but they would still have to face. The abused person would still have to face their abuser every day at the meeting.
Oh.
They wouldn't warn the rest of the congregation and say, hey, just so you know, there's a child abuser in our midst, and maybe you should protect your children. That would never happen, ever. And so it just opened up the doors. It became a pedophile's paradise. Oh. That's what people have been saying it.
Wow.
So, because you're supposed to trust. These guys are our friends. They're not going to be child abusers.
Right.
They're good brothers. This is what we're told, and so
must be incredibly confusing and horrible for the kid that got abused. That they still have to go to these fucking. They got to go to a place where they're still going to be touched or dealt with, and people got to smile. Your parents are smiling at the idiot that fucking diddled with you, and you got to act like everything's okay, and just talk about. That is fucking evil.
And then it gets even worse. It gets even more evil. Because so what their rule is that there has to be two witnesses. And this is their biblical rule. There has to be two witnesses to their sin. So there's no witnesses to child abuse. It's the abuser and the abusee, I guess,
right.
for the child. So if the abuser doesn't acknowledge it, says, no, that never happened, then there's no second witness to it. So they have to wait for someone else to be abused to get that second witness, so they can say, "Oh, we have a child abuser in our mix. Now we're going to disfellowship them." Even then, they might not even do it because they're two different occasions, two different people. They might say, "Well, it's not the same. It might be the same crime, but it's not quite the same thing." It's absolutely ridiculous,
right.
and that's why it became a pedophile paradise, as many people say.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and two witnesses, and he shows remorse, and you never know what'll happen then too. So, still not disfellowshipped.
Yeah.
But smoke a cigarette or date somebody that's not a Jehovah Witness, and you're gone.
Conversely, if you wanted to, this gets really off the deep end. If you want to catch somebody in adultery, say like, oh, you think your wife is cheating on you or something like that, all you have to do is have somebody that saw them stay overnight. There's no witnesses. They just stayed overnight in the same place, and they just assume that sex happened. And done. You're under reproof or disfellowshipped.
What's under reproof? What did you?
Reproof would be, so they would put sanctions on you, like they would maybe take away some responsibilities, or you wouldn't be allowed to comment at meetings, or they give you jobs to do, and they call it a responsibility, and it's a privilege to do these things.
Right.
So getting them taken away is a kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
Getting shitty jobs taken away.
Getting shitty jobs taken away. Yeah.
Wow. And then, so who makes? Do you guys got to give 15% of what you make to?
No, they don't do it as an actual tithe, and I think this is brilliant on their end, because the regular churches, they want their 10 or they want their 15%. Jehovah Witnesses want as much as they can possibly get, so it's constant. It's there's no collection plate that gets passed around, and they brag about that. But I don't think, and it's been over 20 years since I've been to a meeting. I don't think a meeting will go by when they're not asking for something. Donate for this, donate for that. It's just, it's never ending. And the contribution box is in such a place, and I guess like a collection plate, people love to go up to it and make a big show, and
Sure.
and it gets around who donates how much, and of course that has to be outdone. Now I'm sure that is with every church, but it's just
so they have a collection plate like right at the front where.
That's how, believe it or not, that's exactly how I left, which is the very last meeting that I ever went to. I was disfellowshipped, and it was, when you see the article in Our London, I'm standing, the picture's taking right in front of that former Kingdom Hall, and I was there, and I was repentant, and I was trying to come back, and I wanted to make a donation, and I couldn't do it because the contribution box was right beside the speaker in the front. And of course, I had to come in late and I had to leave early. And I'm not allowed to talk to anybody. So I called one of the elders up, and I asked him if I could give him a donation that he could put in the box for me. And he very, very smugly said, "Nope, you're going to have to do it yourself." So that would mean drawing as much attention to myself as possible in a disfellowship state when nobody's talking to me, and I'm showing up late and leaving early, and now I'm going to have to walk in front of the entire congregation while the guy's giving his sermon and put my little amount of money in this contribution box. And I stewed and I stewed and I stewed, and then I got angry, and it was halfway through, and I just walked out, and that was the absolute last time I ever stepped foot again, and I became a critic from that second onward.
Right.
So,
but you didn't put the money in or anything.
No, because I wasn't going to walk.
How much were you going to put in?
$100.
Oh, I would have put a fucking used condom.
Yeah.
Like here.
Well, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
At the time.
People put in like serious money,
Oh yeah, yeah,
like thousands of dollars.
absolutely.
Jeez.
Yeah, serious money. They're divesting themselves of property in New York City right now. They're moving their headquarters from Brooklyn to upstate New York. You can imagine what property values are in Brooklyn, and they had a lot of buildings. So they have sold $1 billion, almost $1 billion in property in Brooklyn over the last 5 years.
Right.
And they just put another $1 billion of property on the market within the last 3 months.
Holy shit, they got that much money.
And that's just one city.
See, I thought Scientology was the guys that the investors, like the big, like they buy buildings, they got money, and same with the Mormons do that too. They
It's the same business model.
Same business model, eh?
And that's what it is. It's a business.
Yeah, it's a smart business. Buy property. Yeah, and
Get
who's in
volunteers.
charge? Who's in charge of that? Like they have a president and stuff, right?
Yeah. Now the hierarchy is kind of vague that way, but there's a president, and like a typical business, the spiritual rulers are the governing body. There's 7 of them, and they are the ones that stand up and say this is what is important spiritually. How much they run on the business end of things, it's hard to say. There's absolutely no transparency with any of their transactions at that level.
Right. Man, I'm just amazed that they would command that much money. That is,
Don't forget they bought these properties, 50 years ago or 80 years ago or more.
but
right?
somebody had to come up with that.
Yeah.
Somebody had to sit and say, how are we gonna invest this money to make more money?
Yeah.
And somebody came up with, we need to buy this land, and there's always money in land. It's smart.
And then now they're buying land, and then they're building on volunteer labor, and then they sell the land off afterwards. So, all these kingdom halls that you see, they're not owned by the local congregation. They're all owned by headquarters.
Right.
So the amount of property that they own is stupendous.
Right.
Worldwide. Absolutely
Right, of
stupendous.
course. God, I got to get into that racket. You ever go to? You haven't been back at all, have you?
I have. I'm a glutton for punishment.
Do you ever go back and there's like one guy there that's full of shit, and just he's a hypocrite. He doesn't believe, but he's just there to, like he's got a broad and he's got the kids there and he's all set. Like that's what I want to do with Michelina's husband. Just go, you fucking little weasel. I know you don't believe this shit. You're just porking her just to fucking get a good seat.
But you know what? I feel sorry for the guy, because the guy is trapped in a religion that's absolutely horrendous, that plays with his mind on a regular basis, and he's got to sit through this shit to get what he wants.
Now,
so he may want out in the worst way and can't do it because he loses everyone around him, and that's a hard thing to do.
But when you say play with the mind, these people seem happy. Like, is it a facade? Because, like, they just... I mean, I had an old guy here come by, and usually I'm polite, believe it or not, when people come to the door, because I know what it's like to
Be rejected?
go door to door, and I had to sell shit door to door. And I once you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, you realize that they go through pain. Yeah. Like you're nervous as shit. You got to put yourself in their shoes.
Absolutely.
And they're kind of being told, this is what you have to do. And a lot of people don't have the gift of gab. Okay, most people just cannot stand in front of others and talk. They just can't. And then you're told to go do this to a bunch of strangers is even worse for that
Absolutely
person.
true.
But there's training for that.
Of course, there's training,
Yeah.
but there's
every week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, there's training, but there's always those people that they just like to sit in the back and not speak.
Yes.
And it's
Okay.
the worst thing for them to stand in somebody's door and go, hey,
Well,
you're
yeah, can you
wrong about
imagine
something.
The car ride there, sitting in the car, the going through your head while I'm doing this. Well, I did it because I need the money, and you don't want people to think you're desperate. And then you knock on the door with a big smile, and people are like, "Fuck off."
Yeah.
We don't talk. And you just feel brutal. And you try different approaches. You try different. You just try different things, and you realize that what. Don't be so mean to people. Even when the person calls and they want you change your long distance or whatever. Even, they hate the fuck. You think they actually like this job? So you don't need to be a goof to them. You just say, no, I'm not interested. And they just keep going. Just say, no, listen, I understand, not interested. Hang up the phone.
Yeah.
You don't need to say, go fuck yourself and get a better job or whatever. You don't.
Be a decent human.
Yeah, exactly.
Always be a decent human.
Exactly. So, because those, you feel that, when they go home, they're going to feel that shit. You don't need that.
So you asked if they're happy and if it's a facade. And I think, today's Bell Let's Talk Day. So everybody get out and get some money for mental health.
Right.
I'm going to speak personally. I dealt with mental health issues, and that's not due to the cult, but it exacerbated it. So we were not supposed to go get help. We were supposed to rely on Jehovah. You know why you feel sad? You don't pray enough. You don't study enough. Study the Bible more, and you'll be happy. That's what we're told. So it's ineffective. It doesn't actually work.
They don't believe in medicine. Like if you need to go to, if you're depressed or something,
it's not that they don't believe, but it's discouraged because they may talk you out of believing in the Jehovah's Witness brand of the Bible, right?
Right.
So they try to insulate you as much as possible. So it's just discouraged. So because I was discouraged, I didn't seek help. And I got to the point where, there was a time where I didn't get out of bed for a month.
Right.
It was like my life was just stopped. I couldn't deal with anything at all. And it took me a long time to come back from that to, get myself to the point where I could stand up and look myself in the mirror and go, you know what? Hey, you're not a bad guy.
Right.
That took a long time to come from.
Part
of that is my, my genetics, my family. Part of it is the religious guilt that gets put on you. And growing up a Catholic, you're quite familiar with that type of guilt.
Sure.
It's the same type of thing. It's nerve-wracking.
Well, you're born with. I never understood this, that you're a sinner. I remember talking to a guy about that. He's trying to get me into his church. A nice guy. He's trying to get me into the not Pentecostal Baptist church, and he's like, you're a sinner, and I'm like, okay, but you're born a sinner, and I'm like, well, what do you mean? And we're at a coffee shop, and he goes, do you not look at the girl at the counter, and think, she got a nice ass, and I'm like, yeah, but we are animals. Like, that's what guys do. I'm not.
But we're created in God's image, aren't we? So God wouldn't look at our ass and go, nice ass.
It's just that's what. Yeah, I mean, if you didn't look at her, I would think you were kind of weird. If you just or whatever. I just don't. There's always this. Something's wrong with you, and this can help you. And there's nothing wrong with you. There's just. You are who you are. If there's something mentally wrong, of course, get help. But you cannot just, you're born a sinner. You're born bad. It's you're commanded to be well. Commanded to be well. You need to go seek and learn, the Bible, and you'll be well.
Yeah.
And I think that is just so. Such a brain fuck for people.
It is, absolutely, and that's why within the Jehovah's Witnesses there are a number of people who are on medication trying to keep with that because you're constantly being told what you do is not enough. You need to go out and knock on more doors. You need to give more dollars. You need to help on more builds. You need to come to meetings more regularly. You need to study more. You're never doing enough. You can always do one thing better,
right?
And that's a constant message, and that is not healthy. It's just not.
How many people how many meetings a week?
It's changed since I've been in there. I believe
3 nights a week when I was going.
Three nights a week.
3 nights a week, or it will be 2 nights, and then the Sunday meeting, and then service on Saturday when I was there. So you're busy, days. And then you're supposed to have family study on one of the nights off, and then you're supposed to prepare for the meetings. They have this illustration where a rich man gives you how many hours in a week is $168 a week, and all that rich man asks from back is $5 per week, and that's supposed to mean there's 168 hours in a week that God's given you, and he only wants you to come to meetings for 5 hours a week. But that's not realistic. The amount of time that you put into Jehovah's Witnesses.
I never heard that one.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
That's awesome.
That was my last shepherding call. Was that one?
Oh.
So, but they they constantly say, oh, it's not that much, but 20 hours a week, it would be nothing for a devout Jehovah's Witness to dedicate to
Right.
their faith.
Right. And they're completely, like it just seems like, where Catholics have like once a week kind of thing, where you would sit there and go, great, I got 6 days off. It just seems like where the Jehovah would be like the last thing they want you to do is go home and relax. They want you to constantly
Always something to do. Yeah.
always something to do. It has to do with us. You have no time. It's like running around chicken with his head cut off. Just you're constantly
Busy work.
busy. Don't when it's when you stop and think is when there's problems. When you sit there and go, why am I doing this? Oh, you're doing it for God. But am I happy doing this? Well, God's happy. God's happy that I'm not happy doing this.
Yeah, and that's the big trick is you're doing it for God, quote unquote, but you're really doing it for religion. You're doing it for man.
Right.
That's all you're doing it for.
Yeah.
For a reward. I'm a much, much better person without religion, much more moral and much more ethical than I ever was when I had religion. That's just the way it is, and I do it because I want to, not because there's some reward, life on earth forever or in heaven or any of that. It's just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I always thought was kind of people would go, well, I'm going to go to feed the poor, and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to do that, and it was always, before you give them the sandwich, you give them a sermon, and it's like you shouldn't even give them. You should just do it because it's just good to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do it because you're trying to buy a seat in heaven. Just do it because it's good. I think it's worse you doing it for to buy yourself a seat. It's like, to me, you're a coward. It's like, I'm scared to go to hell forever and ever. And there are people that are absolutely, they totally believe that there is a place that they're going to burn forever upon a flesh will, peel off and then grow back on. And I mean, forever. And it's just people believe that.
Oh, I miss summer.
I miss Kenny Rogers chicken. I really do. Remember where they used to have that in London?
That stuff is sinful.
That
I
is
don't
great.
remember.
It was awesome. They only had it for a short. It pissed me right off. So, yeah. So when are you going to start for the movie? When do you think you're going to Is it going to be a short or is it actually?
No, full feature film. 12 years in, like I said, the biggest concern that I had, and one of the biggest reasons why it took this long, I was going through emails yesterday. This script, this version of this screenplay has been done for 5 years.
I remember when you first gave it to me. Absolutely, yeah.
2011. It's so time consuming, and to make it right, I mean, there was just no way that this was going to be done half-assed. It wasn't going to be done with shitty cameras and amateur actors. I mean, it had to be perfect, and that's why it's taken so long. Now we're going to start the audition process in March, and like I said, the filming end of October into November, and then hopefully we're going to enter this thing into some festivals, see where it goes from there. But it's going to be good.
Well, and that's one of the things that's I really like about this project is it's not a documentary. It's not they're telling you this is what we think. It is a story,
Right.
and it's a drama, and you can draw your own conclusions from it.
Yeah. I think the funniest part is, for all the reaction that I've gotten from Jehovah Witnesses, because I'll be the first one to admit I have trolled a couple of their sites over the years and thrown up an interview here, an interview there. And the vitriol that I get from these people is hilarious, and they have no clue what it's about. But the couple of Jehovah Witnesses or active ones who have read it have actually said, well, I don't see what the big deal is. I see this as a reaffirmation of my faith, which I found shocking as well. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, if that's what you believe, that's what you believe.
Right.
Yeah, we're not there to tell a story that is so one-sided that it doesn't, it loses its entertainment value. This is Yeah, this is going to be a very good story, and like I said, you're going to see both sides. I'm sure people who have never been a Jehovah's Witness will say, "Well, you know what? I can kind of see what the parents are going through here a little bit."
Right.
In regards to their church and their family and their tribe. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Well, there's that Scientology movie.
Going clear.
Yeah, have you seen that?
I have. It's fantastic.
Wow.
It's really good.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you could see if you were, what's his name, Tom Cruise, would you not just get in your jet, drive to where these places are where they keep these people just to see if it's true?
No, you've never seen it.
Well, he can't. They've got his claws into him. If you watch what that movie is about, they've got his claws into him. He can't. Even if he does know, which he probably doesn't, they keep him insulated. If he does know, he can't do anything about it.
Yeah, but if he knew that that's what they would do to people, like treat people like that, go see it. Like go. I mean, do they really? If it's I would sit there and go, really? Well, then let's go right now. I'm going to go right now and go find these people that are locked up and treated like fucking cattle. I want to see this for myself. And for me, it's just, I can't watch any of his movies. I can't watch fucking Ben Affleck. Without him wanting to get hurt.
Is he in that? Is he in that thing too?
No,
okay.
he pissed me off when he went up against Sam Harris, Bill Maher, and he called Sam Harris a racist and whatever. I just thought you little coward. So, I watch these guys and Bill Cosby. Fuck, so many flawed people out there.
Oh yeah,
and these are people that I thought were perfect. Then you realize we do live on a pretty fucked up planet. People that we thought were quote normal are pretty scary individuals.
Yeah.
They're not what we thought they were.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what bothers me. So when people sit there and go, yeah, the world is getting eviler or worse, yeah, I agree with them. I mean, if I knew that, when I was a kid, if Michael Jackson was a pedophile, I would just think, I never listened to him, but I just couldn't see the guy doing it. And then you watch it and you go, holy shit, he's a pedophile. And you
want to get into that?
Yeah, he was raised as a Jehovah's Witness too, you realize, right?
Was he?
Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of consensus. That Michael Jackson developed his behavior due to someone in his own congregation doing it to him as a child. I don't even know if I should have said that because there's no proof. There's none whatsoever
Of Jackson?
being molested as a child. Yeah.
Oh.
But like I said, it's a common theory. I read a book, Todd Bridges, who was on that TV show Different Strokes.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, it is proven fact that he was abused as a child, but his abuser was someone that he met through the Jackson family. So whether that guy was a Jehovah's Witness or not, I mean, but it was his manager, I believe, when he was a child. And it's all inner loop there. It's.
I've totally forgot that Jackson was a Jehovah's Witness because he went from that to several other different types of religions. Like all these people, it's funny. Like I'll watch Madonna's in this thing called Kabbalah.
Yeah.
And I guess you give your money to them. That's all that you give money. And the people that run the place, they're shown on TV shopping, blowing millions of dollars on these shopping sprees. And I'm thinking, that's where my money's going. It's just like, are you that stupid? Like, are you that thick? Do you really need? There's so many religions out there that they're sickening. They just the one guy. I mean, he died. The snake guy, where he'd pick up fucking snakes and kiss them, and
Oh yeah, I remember.
and whatever, and he ends up getting killed by him. Well, what do you expect? It's a snake, you idiot. Like,
But the Bible says that
But the
you can
Bible-
handle poisonous vipers and
yeah, and it was just that
harms.
little passage. That's what bothered me.
Which is spurious. It's not even in the Bible. Like it was added later on.
Yeah, and there are several things that were added on that I always thought, this is what got me when I talked to this preacher. I said, whoever wrote, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they weren't idiots. They had to be smart guys.
Well, they were educated in Greek. Absolutely.
Yeah, but but it's anonymous. It wasn't written by Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. None of these guys wrote it. A Greek guy wrote it maybe 100 years later or 80 years later. But, think about it. Even if he wrote it 40 years later from somebody who passed away, they're remembering shit from 40 years ago. Where, how can you not remember seeing a guy raised from the dead? How can you not, were there three apostles there, or was Mary there when the rock? I mean, even when you listen to the accounts that Matthew, Mark, and Luke give, they're different from each other. They're not the same story. They're all different. Something's missing from each story, or something's added to the story. So that's what bothered me. And I always thought,
I like what Bart Ehrman says, because the Jehovah's Witnesses really do this well. But Bart Ehrman says, and he's a Bible scholar that many people know. He says, if you take, what Mark says, and you lump it together with what Luke says, and then you lump that together with what Matthew says, and then you pull what you can from John, because it's pretty different, and you put it all together, you don't have what the Bible says. You've just created your own gospel, because these are all 4 different works.
Yeah.
And if you put them all together, then you've got something different than all of them together, and you've just created your own 5th gospel, basically.
Yeah.
And that's not what any of the writers were trying to go to. Obviously they're not Mark or whatever their different names were, but the guy who wrote that, he wasn't trying to tell the whole story. He was just trying to tell his view of what it was.
Right.
And they don't jive perfectly.
Yeah. And that's the thing that always bugged me the most, was that they don't jive. They're cobbled together. And that's where Bart Ehrman took it apart. And we didn't have any of these things as kids, where we could check out stuff on YouTube or check out web pages. I mean, there's several. Some people. I mean, there's one guy I saw on YouTube that he thinks the end of the world is Tuesday. But then you could look at other things, and you could see that if it comes from a good source, and you could back up the source, then it is believable. But of course, there is shit out there that is bullshit. But you could easily decipher it. You don't need.
It's not always easy, though.
It's not always easy, but there's like I see a guy like a Kent Hovind, who is one of the most, to me, he's like a con artist, complete and total con artist. I mean, he uses words, talks like a jackass, brings up stuff from the Bible, makes absolutely no sense, but he's a great seller. He could sell, right? That's what he does. He just sells. So he could sell this shit, where he'll go up against David Schumer, and even Schumer will just go, okay, that's funny, kind of take him like it's a comedy, like going, wow, that's really funny, but this is what these are the facts, and you could just tell Schumer doesn't know how to take him, like just going, is this guy? Like, people believe this guy?
Is he actually a believer? But people do.
People
the
do
part.
believe the guy. Yeah. That's what terrifies you. Believe this is absolutely painful. You just sit there and go, how the fuck do you believe this, man? Yeah. I know we all need something to believe, but shit, that, really? Go to a museum. I mean, people are telling me the planet's 5,000 years old. Are you out of your mind? Like, 5,000 years old. It's just, to me, people believe that.
Yeah, the nearest star, the light takes more than 5,000 years to get here. Well, maybe not the nearest star, but stars. We can see these things because the light has been traveling for sometimes billions of years.
Right. And that's fact. That's just, and then you have a guy like, I saw him, not Bart Ehrman, the con artist, Hovind, he talks like this. He talks like, were you around? Did you know that? So what is light? What is light? Light is, and he'll use all this bullshit con artist double talk, and you walk away going, "What the fuck did he just say?"
Well, the one thing I remember that really struck me as just pure evil is a room full of kids, and he stands up there. I believe it was Kenovan who did this, and he stands up there, and it says right up on this giant screen, and he has all the kids chanting it with him. God said it. I believe it. It is settled.
Yeah.
Like that, there's no. Where are we teaching critical thinking? Where are we building our future engineers and our future scientists? With this, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and they there's that saying where most scientists are atheists, where God doesn't even come into the equation. I think, as a kid, if you do believe in God or the Bible or whatever religion, but if you do go into science or any type of chemistry or anything like that, where I think you just kind of realize that it's bullshit, but you just continue your work. You know what I mean? Like you just go, this is bullshit because this rock is, if I'm a paleontologist or a biologist or geologist or any of these things, I realize that, growing up that was bullshit, and they don't even bring it up. They don't even sit there and go, wow, this is bullshit. They just kind of, they know.
Well, it's like Francis Collins, though, is kind of an exception to that. I think it's Francis Collins that was on the DNA project. And, he is a brilliant man. He's a brilliant scientist. And in his science, there's no need for God because it's science. They're separate entities. But in his personal life, he's a devout Catholic and a very fervent Catholic.
Right.
So it's amazing how you can get that divide in the mind where, well, this requires evidence and we need to find why things happen and how things happen. Where then in private life, in the theological world, there's no need for any proof. It just is.
And that's one of the reasons why I don't believe like I used to, is because if you were born in a Muslim country, you'd most likely be Muslim, right? You're born in Italy, you would most likely be Catholic. If you were born in China, you'd be Buddhist. If you weren't born where you were, you would be something else.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. What I don't like is when they sit there and say, we're right and they're all wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm thinking, how can all of us be right and billions of them are all wrong? But we figured it out. And you look around and you go, but we're idiots.
Or even more, like God chose me over you.
Yeah.
How is that? I'm not that I'm any smarter than anybody else, but God chose me to give me the truth, but He didn't choose you. How does that change your worldview?
Right.
It's horrid. It's a horrible way to look at the rest of the world.
Right.
You're putting yourself as something better, something more likable to the supreme being. Well, that's not healthy either.
Right. So what?
I think it's why we're not very likable as a species.
Well, I thought you were talking about yourself there for a second.
Yeah, a little bit of that too.
Well, we've never been likable as a species. Anytime you have humans, we took over North America or any place, we take it by force.
Yeah.
And we always tell people, if it's a tribe, I mean, the Indians that used to live here did not believe in God. They believed in, the wind or the tree of life or whatever. They did not believe in the God of the Bible. They had no knowledge of a Bible until somebody came and shoved it down their throats.
Mm-hmm.
And that was done by force. That was done, with the, I always find it's hilarious and sad. You watch like a black preacher going nuts saying how, they have it right. The Christians are, and they talk about Africa and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, in Africa, when like 300-400 years ago, your people did not believe in God. A white person put you on a boat, beat the shit out of you, shoved a Bible down your throat and said, this is what you're going to believe, fucking raped your wife, sold your children, and now you're Christian? Now it's like, yes, this is, like, do you not think Do you not think, like, history-wise, what happened? Like, the Africans did not believe, or Guyana, or any of these tribes that were looted. And it wasn't just
Right.
black people being slave. White people were slaves too. If you didn't have the money, you were a slave.
Yeah.
Okay. So this, the Quran. They were, when you ever see the harems where you go, wow, that guy's set. Those harem, all those chicks in his harem, were all Christian women that were taken, sex slaves. They were all Christian. So it just shows that whoever was in power, whoever, was their way, not your way, whoever's in power, whoever has the strongest army, it's our way. Simple as that. If the Muslims had an American army, it'd be a totally different outcome.
And we'd be talking about the Quran rather than the Bible, maybe in our own world.
Yeah, you would be talking about the Quran or whatever. And if you watch it, I love watching the history shows where they would show, like, during Roman times, the different gods, right, and the different sets. And there were people that believed in this type of God, and then the Jewish people, they weren't really, like, the Romans kind of would let them, but they kind of had to hide it. Like, you would have a meeting, but you couldn't publicize about it.
Well, it was respected even then because it was an ancient religion. Even then, they respected the historicity of Judaism 2,000 years ago. That's pretty impressive, really, that it still exists.
Yeah.
You look at all the upstarts that came along, Dionysus and Isis and all these
Who's
things.
the one? I would love the god with the tits. Remember that one? It was nothing but tits.
No, I need to find more gods.
Oh, it was just all it was tits.
Huh. Well,
And I
I'll
was
be
like,
at the library tomorrow.
no, I'm telling you, look her up. And it was she just had nothing but fucking tits. And I was like, as a kid, I'm going, oh, I would totally believe this shit. You know what I mean? Like, this is something I would sell this. I'd go to door with this and just go, as soon as you open the door,
see the tits.
As soon as you open the door, I just look and go, titties. Who likes titties?
That reminds me of a great story. The first pair of boobs that I ever saw was door to door with my grandfather.
See, that's why they tell you to
Your
go
grandfather's
out.
boobs?
No. Some lady. I remember I was 10 years old. And this lady answered the door. My grandfather, who was in his 70s at the time, started in on a spiel, and he was looking down on the ground, and she had this quirky look at her face, and then she just undid her robe.
What?
Yeah. She just undid it. It was a silk robe. I remember it as if it happened 10 minutes ago upstairs. And it was my jaw was to the floor, and then she just kind of put her hands on her hips and I'm sitting there, and my grandfather finally looks up. He gets an eyeful. He paused for a tenth of a second and continued on. And the lady was stunned, and of course I was stunned. And
What did she want? You and your grandpa to come in and
I don't know. I think she was just
the double decker on?
yeah. I have no idea.
Should have high-fived your grandpa and said, "Let's rock."
I
Like,
became
what are
a
we
pioneer. I became a pioneer because of that.
I had, as a kid, I remember my buddy's mom came to the door, and she was a voluptuous woman, and she was in her bathrobe, and she opened up her bathrobe when I was at the door, and she had the hairiest bush. And I was like, I had a hard on for like 6 days. Like, I swear to God, I could not.
Now everybody knows we grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, now you just type in hello and a pair of fucking tits show up. But back then,
I thought it was big black cock.
I swear to God, I could not, like, it was like, when you sit there thinking about it going, did that just happen? Like, did I just imagine that? But it was just like, and the heat that I felt from it, it was like, it was wonderful. It was just, anyway, so let's get back to religion here. So, when they were, like, their services at the Jehovah Witness stuff, what would I know what a Catholic service is, and I know what Pentecostal services are, and kind of Pentecostal. I know, there's a Jewish service, and what is their service like?
Well, I'll start with Thursday meeting. The book studies were never a big deal, but a Thursday meeting was indoctrination for the crowd. So the first half was called Theocratic Ministry School. And it was divided into 5 parts. So 5 different speakers with an overseer who graded and schooled everybody. So you would have the first speaker who would give a talk, which would be, I'm just guessing, 5-7 minutes in length. He would sit down to applause. He would be graded and judged on what particular attributes he was working from a sales point to make him better going door to door.
So it was a constant, when you go to these meetings, everybody is being graded.
Absolutely all the
Oh,
time.
fuck, I would fail miserably.
The second talk was
That would
the
just make
Bible
me
reading?
nervous.
Yeah.
I would be just so uptight every week thinking, I'm going to be graded?
Yeah.
So Bible reading, he just mentioned, my first Bible reading, I was 8 years old.
Yeah, I was 9.
Stand on a platform. Couldn't even reach the top of the podium. Had to stand on a box or something
Right.
and read publicly out of the Bible and then graded on it. Saying,
Yeah.
okay, how did you do, Jason?
And the you talk about a love bomb. I will never ever forget the first one, and everybody's first talk when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. It was thunderous applause. I mean, it was, you might as well be playing guitar in a rocks in Madison Square Gardens.
Kind of done on purpose.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But genuinely, but still, it has
What
an
it is,
effect.
it's like stand up when you get that gratification, your first time of getting a crowd just laughing, and you walk off going, I can't wait to do that again.
Yeah.
It's
Right?
a high.
It's a high.
Yeah.
So as a kid, you're thinking, they love me. I will work harder, and I shall, I'll get this. This will happen to me every week.
Absolutely. And then by the time I was 11, 12 years old, I would take such pride in my sermons, whether it be the number 2 talk or the number 4 or number 5. 3 and 4 were for women, I believe. 4 for sure. But yeah. It would just be a matter of doing the absolute best job that you can and going for the applause. And I looked at the grading at the time as, bring it. I know what I'm being graded on this time, and I'm going to get you. And I remember mentioning, okay, well, yeah, you were very, very good on this, but I noticed that, and I'm like, oh, you bastard. Nobody told me I was going to be graded on that one.
Right.
And so...
Now, Alex glossed over something that's actually rather interesting as a misogyny built into the meeting. So as a 12-year-old, 14 when I was baptized, I could give talks.
You're
whatever I
baptized
wanted.
at 14?
I was baptized at 14.
Me too.
Yeah. We were
So
close to the same
they
time.
always get baptized at 14?
No, it's your choice. So you have to make your own dedication to God, and then you go through the questions and see if you.
Do you go in the big jacuzzi?
Yeah, and then some old man in a shirt dunks you underwater, and
Yeah.
Wow.
It's quite a ceremony, and there's more love bombing. Anyways, the point I was going to get to is misogyny. There was the women could not give a talk directly to the audience. They would have to speak. There would be 2 women go up on stage, and they would speak to each other.
What?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's say that again. What would
So
they
the
do?
two women would have to go up on stage, and they would
Right.
have a little play where one would be trying to encourage another one, or there would be a call out in service,
Right.
or a Bible study out in the ministry,
Right.
and they would have to fake this little play because they weren't allowed to speak directly to the audience because women aren't allowed to speak directly to the audience.
Oh, so that they have the same like where the Muslims, I guess, the women aren't allowed inside where the men pray.
Yeah.
But women are allowed to be there, just not speak.
Not speak directly to the audience. Yeah.
Really,
absolutely,
they're
yeah.
not allowed to speak to the audience.
So as a 14-year-old baptized kid, I was a devout individual, as I mentioned before. So I would be out in service quite regularly. Out in service being going out and knocking on doors, and we'd show up for the meeting in the morning before we went out. We'd have a little encouraging pep talk before we went out, and I'd be the one that was be taking the whole I'd be doing the organizing, assigning the car groups, because I'm a man, because I have a penis. All these 40 and 50-year-old women have to listen to the ramblings of a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, and a 14-year-old kid. If you were a 40, 50-year-old woman, I'd be annoyed.
Well, I imagine as a 12-year-old kid, before I was baptized, that 40 or 50-year-old woman would be in charge, but she wouldn't be allowed to say a prayer without a towel on her head or a
Yeah.
handkerchief or scarf. Scarf is what it was. Yeah, so
Some kind of head covering.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had to have a head covering to say a prayer in front of me, a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old or whatever.
But see, that instills. It's to me. I get why they do that. It's just to show you're gonna follow the rules. Like if you go in the army, these are the rules. I don't care who you think you are, but these are the rules, and you're gonna follow these rules. As shitty as these rules are, if you see another person follow those rules, you'll do it. You'll say, those are the rules. That's what I got to do. So as a woman, you sit there and you don't think this is degrading. This is, no, these are just the rules. These are just the way we're brought up. Because if I was a chick, a woman, I would be, furious. I'd be like, who the fuck? What do you mean I got to take a 12-year-old's going to tell me what houses to go, or what do I need to do, or I need to speak to him like like he's the boss. He's a 12-year-old kid. My vagina's older than him. I've got shits older than this kid.
Yeah.
And I've got to listen to this.
But that would not be showing a submissive spirit. And that's what it's all about. You need to be submissive to, they label it as submissive to Jehovah, but it's submissive to the organization.
And that to me, Mick would say that to me all the time. You got to be submissive. And I'm like, and I said to her, why would a God need me to be submissive? Why wouldn't he just he created the planet, did he not?
He made, if he made the rules the way they are, why does he
Like,
make it so
why does
complicated?
he need me to be submissive? Like, but he knows, he knows what you're going to do before you do it. Okay, but if he knows I'm going to go to hell, he knows I'm going to do something bad. Why does he tell me, don't do that?
Step in and go, hey, dude,
Smarten up.
he's a dick. That's why.
Yeah, like why would he know? Like if he loved me so much, I remember. See, I used to get into fights all the time with people, right? Whatever. I used to fight all the time, and when I still do, but when I stopped, and I'm not as aggressive as I used to be, is because once I had kids, and once you hold a baby, and you realize how delicate they are. Okay, you realize that, this is a child, this is a very delicate thing you have there. Now, they're going to grow up. Would you want somebody to pound in their head over a parking spot?
Yeah.
Right? So you look at things differently as you get older, and you say, I'm not as... Some people deserve an ass kicking, but they're, most of the time, you're looking at a person, that's a person there. That's somebody with a, hopefully a brain. You kicking their ass or being a fucking goof to them, at the end of the day, you've accomplished nothing. And would you want that to your kid? Would you want,
Well, it's all part of being understanding. You look at somebody, you don't know what day they had. You don't know how horrible.
Exactly.
Maybe they're being a dick to you, but you know what? You don't know the day that they've had. So just step back.
Right. Yeah, and that's
not
where
important.
That's where I am like I've I still fight, but nowhere near what I used to. I mean, drop of a hat, I would be in there. But it's as you get older, you realize that the world is always going to be shit. Try not to be shit with it. I freaked out the wife the other day, where on the side of the road, there was a woman an old woman trying to cross the road, and I stopped on the shoulder, got out. It was like downtown London. Got out and walked her across the road, and my wife's just stunned. And she's like, "Oh, geez, I didn't think you would do that, and why would you do that?" And she knows I'm a nice person like that too, but she's like, "You're in a rush," and blah blah blah. And I just said, because I have a grandmother, and that's somebody's. Well, I had a grandmother, and I have a mother, and if that was my mother, I would want somebody to make sure she's okay. I don't need God to tell me to go help somebody. If somebody needs help, I'm going to help them. You don't need it's like, well, you should have a moral compass. That comes from God. No, it doesn't. It comes from yourself. You know when you steal something or you do something bad, if you're normal, you should feel kind of shame.
Yeah.
You should feel, kind of, I did something bad. Not this feels good. If it feels good, something's wrong with you. Okay?
Very.
So and it's not the devil. It's something's wrong with you, and you need to go get that fixed. And if you don't get it fixed, Kingston or jail will fix it for you. Okay, so it's your decision, but you don't need a God to tell you, what you're doing is good or bad. You know when you go and buy a coffee or whatever. If the woman thinks that you already paid, and she gives you the coffee, says goodbye, and it's up to you to walk away and say, "I just got a free coffee."
Not a chance.
Or,
I know.
or to just turn around and go, you know what? I owe you money. You'd never, because she's in a rush, and and maybe she's probably gonna get docked because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've got yourself a free coffee, but that poor girl's got to pay for your being a schmuck.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. And when I see people use religion, Jehovah or any Catholic or whatever, it's a crutch. To me, it's a crutch because with Catholicism, you were taught you could do bad. You just go and tell the old man once a month what you did, and everything will clear right out.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a tool. So you're giving me a card to go out there and I used it.
Do what you want.
I could beat this shit, be a goof, right? And then I just tell you my sins, and you give me 50 Hail Marys or 20 Hail Marys or whatever, and I'm done. And me and the old man are okay.
Squared up.
This is a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, if you think about it, that is the biggest crutch, bullshit, con you could pull. Okay? That you're being weak when if you're Jehovah's Witness and you're saying what you're saying. To me, you're not. You need somebody to tell you that we're going to take care of you. You're going to go to heaven. Your children will be okay. We take care of you. They're going to suffer, okay? But you need to follow us, and you do what we say, not what they say. And if you listen to what they say, they're evil.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you've just cut off an important part of the world. You should be able to take the rest of what people say and take it with a grain of salt. If you don't agree with somebody, you don't agree with them. Okay,
But at least listen.
And
try to understand.
Yeah, we live in a time where it's so easy to tell people to fuck off.
Yeah.
And we right now, we're on the net, we're on a podcast. For a fact, if people they could easily disagree or be jerks just listening. But the attitude changes if they were sitting right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? And if they were to just listen, and that's what I love about a podcast or just having a discussion. I used to be a big fan of the Michael Corrin show, and I never,
fantastic, yeah.
I never really liked half the stuff they were talking about, but I just liked having where they would talk, just talk.
And they wouldn't agree, which is
No,
fine.
you don't need to agree.
Absolutely.
Just tell me what you think, and even if you think it's PC, it's PC. If you think if you're lying, I could tell you're lying. But at least just tell me what you think, okay? And that's it. And I think that is important. Where we live in a time where we don't do that. I mean, Galileo. What was it? 300-400 years ago. I remember in school a teacher saying, "You're lucky. You're so lucky that it's not like the old days where they could kill you for what you're saying."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, it's still like that. People could kill you. If you were in a Muslim country right now, you're talking about Jehovah's Witness, and they asked you, what are you, Muslim or Jehovah or what do you, and then you say, no, I don't believe in any of that. They'd kill you.
Yeah.
What are you eating?
Yeah.
Bacon.
Yeah. But it's just, that's sad. That is terrifying when you think about it. You say, there are places on this planet where they could kill you for not thinking their way.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. That is not the way
You know,
humans you know.
But you say that in in reflection to a Muslim country, but the same goes for people who invade places in Oregon or inner cities. If you don't agree with the people that are around you,
Sure.
a lot of times you're gonna eat it, whether it's a
Sure.
bullet or a sword. It's
Sure, pull up with your nice car in Detroit
yeah
and just tell them you're a good person.
yeah.
Just say, I'm just, I'm a good person. I'm going to leave the car here overnight, And,
Here's the keys. Watch it for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, you might be lucky. There might be somebody saying, you know what? No, nothing's going to happen. But most of the time, people give two shits.
But they're still good people,
Sure.
I've been lucky. I've done a lot of traveling and seen a good chunk of the world. And there's been a couple of times where I've unknowingly put myself in dangerous situations. And I remember one time I was traveling with the woman who's now my ex-wife, and we were walking down the street looking for food in Egypt, and we're starving. We're trying to figure out where to go, and a guy comes up to us in the middle of the street and says, "You're going the wrong way." And I'm like, well, we're just looking for a restaurant. He goes, no, just turn around. You're going the wrong way. So we had no idea what we were wandering into. But because of a good person, maybe I'm here to talk to you.
Where were you going?
Where was I? Or we were just looking for a restaurant.
So why did he say you were going the wrong way?
Oh, we were just wandering into a very dangerous neighborhood.
Oh.
Yeah. So, he could have saved my life.
I need to put this cross somewhere. Where can I put this giant cross? Yeah, that would be yeah, it's the same thing when you watch old Nazi movies where there's always that one nice Nazi where you think is the bad one.
Yeah,
there are people like that. Yeah, that's sure. But the fact is that we still live in a world that it still can kick your ass.
It can, but people are people, and it doesn't matter where you go. As much as there are good people here and bad people here, there's the same there. So most people that I know, and maybe I'm a lucky person, but most people that I know are good people. And that doesn't matter. And I think that holds true, actually, is what I'm going to say. I think that holds true whether you live in Canada, whether you live in the States, or whether you live in Afghanistan, or whether you live in Ghana. Most people that are around are good people and will help you. But there's the very bad ones as well. And sometimes they have a little more freedom. That's the difference.
Sometimes they have a little more power, and that's what worries me. With when I'm just stunned with this ISIS shit where I just go, how are these guys still here when you've got the French army, the Russian army, you've got serious military might coming down on you and you're still here? That's what worries me.
Yeah, I don't
where I just sit there and go, there's 1,500 a month volunteer that live in a good society like ours. I consider a good society that say, we got to go help our brothers and sisters, and they end up getting their heads blown off.
Yeah.
I don't get that. That's the part where you believe too much in a book, in a 2,000-year-old book. You should start reading a 200-day-old book. Never mind a 2,000-year-old one.
Yeah.
Read stuff that is today. Don't worry about the movie that you're doing, Blood. People literally believe the shit that's in there, and it kills them, and it kills families, it kills relationships. That's the part I can't stand. When I was a kid and they would say religion, you would always think warm, wholesome rainbows and blah blah blah. And as you get older, you realize it's not that. It's, I need money, make more money, follow our teachings, or, you're in deep shit, and we judge you. Mm-hmm. And when you're a kid, you're told everything, total opposite. Nobody judges you. God loves you no matter what. But don't be gay as you get older.
Except for that, yeah.
Don't be gay. Don't question, and as you get older, it's like, just do what you're told. And you realize that, what, it wasn't as romantic as I thought it was going to be.
No, not even close. The blood issue, it's interesting because what hits the news media and what people read about are babies and young children and women and fathers who die because they don't get a blood transfusion, but they don't understand the other end of it. How many times did you not order pizza because you weren't sure if there was blood in the pepperonis?
What?
Oh
yeah, Schneider's hot dogs, I think it was. Can't have Schneider's because there's blood in them. Yeah.
You can't have blood in the
Food,
blood in
yeah.
your food. So I remember eating or having to, at the grocery store, look at all the ingredients when I'm buying hot dogs or any kind of processed meat, and look to see if there's, beef byproducts. So that was what we were told was a code word for blood that may contain blood. So if
Yeah.
it had byproducts on as an ingredient, we couldn't buy it. It wouldn't come into our house.
Well, what's with the blood?
Well, because it was a command. It was a command from God. So from a religious aspect, Noah was given the command not to eat blood, and then later on in the Christian scriptures in Acts, the command was given again to abstain from blood. So they take that abstain to mean don't eat or don't transfuse. So the don't transfuse is the one that has grave consequences for believers when they face a crisis. The other part of it is laughable. It's absolutely hilarious. Is your meat properly bled? Is that steak was it properly bled when the animal was killed? That comes up in conversations all the time.
Yeah.
Make sure that our bodies are pure and not defiled with blood.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh, it suck. Well, folks, you're listening to the Wrecking Crew Comedy Podcast. It's been hilarious.
We tell some Smurf stories.
We've been talking to Jason King and Alex Riker. Alex, they were former Jehovah Witnesses, and now Alex is going to be making a movie shortly about the day in a life and what Jehovah Witnesses go through. And I believe the title will be called Blood.
The working title.
Working title will be Blood. And anything you want to plug? Anything else?
Yeah, it's it just the auditions are coming up, the casting is coming up, filming is coming up. Skeleton Key Films, Jason Armstrong is directing, and I'm producing, and we're looking forward. The support so far has been absolutely overwhelming, from ex-Jehovah Witnesses who want to see the project get made to people who don't know anything about it and are just interested in the storyline, and even to the few Jehovah Witnesses that I've talked to. Some have been very, very positive about it, and that's great.
That's great. That's great, and I'm sure it'll go well. It seems like you're very passionate about the project, and you look like you have unfinished business that you want to take care. And Jace, anything you want to plug?
Just want everybody to make sure they learn critical thinking skills. For me, I don't have anything to plug. Go out, learn about the world, learn about people around you. Just be a good human.
Right. So that was really nice. I say stick to what you believe. Don't ever question anything. Do what you're told. Try marijuana.
And
cocaine,
give me your money.
And yes, don't give me 15%. Give me all of it.
Hey, I'm the one making a film here.
Yeah.
I could use the money.
So, folks, I appreciate you listening again. If you have any questions that you want to ask, message me, let me know, and I'll pass them along to Alex or Jason. And folks, I appreciate you guys' time, Alex and Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us on.
You're listening to the Wrecking Crew Comedy Podcast. I'm Vito D'Amico. Folks, enjoy the rest of the weekend.